The wind whispered across the Atacama Desert, carrying tiny grains of sand that sparkled like broken glass. Yuna Kim adjusted her protective gear, her eyes scanning the rocky landscape. Another day, another research expedition. She loved these moments. Just her, the science team, and endless possibilities waiting to be discovered. 3 days into the geological survey, everything changed. It happened quickly. One moment, Yuna was collecting rock samples near an unusual rock formation. The next, a strange humming filled the air. The other researchers around her started to fall, their bodies going limp as if suddenly disconnected from their own muscles. Yuna turned, her hand reaching for the emergency radio. Before she could press the button, a wave of blue-green light washed over her. The world tilted. Gravity seemed to lose its meaning. Then, darkness. When she opened her eyes, nothing made sense. The room was unlike anything she had ever seen. Walls that seemed to breathe. Surfaces that shifted colors with each passing second. Lights that didn't come from any source she could understand. And the beings around her, they were not human. The Eldrin looked like living crystals. Their bodies moved in ways that broke every rule of human anatomy. Some parts were transparent, others glowed with an inner light. They moved without walking, more like liquid flowing through space than creatures actually moving. Subject acquired, one of them said. Its voice came through a small device, sounding flat and emotionless. Preliminary assessment commencing. Yuna knew she should be afraid. Any normal person would be terrified. But she was a scientist. Fear was a luxury she couldn't afford. Her mind was already working, observing, collecting data. She tested her restraints. Tight. Made of a material that wasn't metal, wasn't fabric. Something entirely new. The examination table beneath her felt alive, responding to her smallest movement with tiny vibrations. Cellular structure appears more complex than initial projections, another Eldrin commented. Its crystal-like body shifted, creating patterns of light and shadow. Yuna remained absolutely still. But inside, her mind was racing. She had studied first contact protocols. She knew about potential alien encounters. But nothing in her training had prepared her for this. The Eldrin believed they were in complete control. They saw her as nothing more than a test subject, a specimen to be studied and discarded. What they didn't realize was that Yuna Kim was not just any human. She was a fighter, a survivor, and she was just getting started. Her fingers, hidden from view, slowly began to move, not in panic, not in fear, but with a calculated precision that would have impressed her worst enemies back on Earth. The game was about to change, and the Eldrin had no idea what was coming. Days passed, or maybe weeks. Time lost all meaning in this place. The facility was a maze of shifting walls and strange lights. Every surface seemed alive, changing colors and shapes when no one was looking. Yuna watched. She learned. Her scientist's brain never stopped working, even when the Eldrin thought she was broken. They ran tests every day, sometimes hourly. Blood draws, skin samples, scans that made her entire body feel like it was on fire. The Eldrin moved around her like ghosts, their crystal bodies reflecting light in impossible ways. They spoke in their clicking language, believing she couldn't understand. But Yuna understood more than they knew. She noticed small details, the way the junior researchers hesitated during painful procedures, the slight tremor in the translation devices, the careful placement of equipment. Every single thing told a story. Her cell, if you could call it that, was unlike any prison. The walls breathed, literally breathed. They expanded and contracted, creating soft sounds that might have driven a less disciplined person crazy. But Yuna kept her mind sharp. She counted, she observed, she planned. The first real opportunity came during a routine examination. A younger Eldrin researcher, at least Yuna thought it was younger, seemed different. Its crystal body had softer edges, less rigid, more uncertain. When it came to take her blood sample, its movements were slower, More careful. You do not want to hurt me, Una said suddenly. The words came out in perfect Eldren language, a skill she had secretly developed during the initial days of her capture. The researcher froze. Its crystal structure flickered, a response that looked like surprise. Una knew she had found something important, a crack in their perfect system. Humans are not just test subjects, she continued, her voice calm and steady. We are more than your data points. The researcher didn't respond, but it didn't move away either. Una had studied alien communication protocols during her research back on Earth. She knew that first contact scenarios were complex, but nothing had prepared her for this. The Eldren saw humans as nothing more than biological curiosities, specimens to be examined and discarded. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Her body bore the marks of their experiments, tiny scars, neural interface points, biochemical tracer implants, but each mark was also a piece of information, a clue to understanding their technology. The facility was massive, hundreds of rooms, countless corridors that seemed to change direction when you weren't looking. Other humans were here too. She had heard them. Whispers, soft cries, the sounds of people who had given up. But Una Kim was not someone who gave up. She began to map the facility in her mind. Every test, every procedure, every moment was a chance to learn something new. The Eldren thought they were studying her. They didn't realize she was studying them much more carefully. Something was coming, a moment of change, and when it arrived, the Eldren would never see it coming. Una allowed herself the smallest of smiles. The first step of her plan was already taking shape. They wanted a test subject. She gave them a reckoning. Pain was nothing new to Una, but this was different. The latest experiment pushed her body to its absolute limit. Electrodes covered her skin, sending waves of energy that made her muscles twitch and jump. The Eldren researchers watched without emotion, their crystal bodies reflecting the harsh laboratory lights. Subject showing unexpected resistance, one of them noted. Its voice came through a translator, flat and emotionless. Una gritted her teeth. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. In the corner of the room, she noticed a small panel. Most would have missed it, but her eyes caught every detail. It looked like a control interface with tiny lights that pulsed in a strange rhythm. The Eldren thought she was just another test subject. They were wrong. Her mind was always working, always planning. The medical team had made a critical mistake. They kept bringing her back to the same examination room. They followed the same routine. Humans might be predictable, but Una was anything but typical. She began to understand their technology. Not just how it worked, but its weaknesses. Every machine has a flaw. Every system has a break point. During one particularly long scan, she noticed something interesting. The junior researcher, the same one from before, seemed uncomfortable. Its crystal structure shifted nervously. Something was wrong. How many have died? Una asked suddenly. The question came out in perfect Eldren language. The researcher froze. Silence filled the room. The other Eldren looked at each other, their crystal bodies creating strange light patterns. Irrelevant. One of them finally responded, but the hesitation was there. A tiny crack in their perfect facade. Una knew about the other test subjects. She had heard their whispers, seen the empty spaces where humans once were. They were treating them like lab rats. Disposable. Replaceable. But she was going to change that. Her background in biochemistry gave her an advantage. Each test, each scan, each painful procedure, they were teaching her more about their technology than they realized. The human body was adaptable, resilient, something the Eldren had completely underestimated. She started to collect information. Small things, the way the machines connected, the frequency of their scanning equipment, the exact moment when the researchers became less careful. One day, something would break, and when it did, she would be ready. The pain from the experiments was constant. Electricity coursing through her body. Strange chemicals being injected. Scans that felt like they were pulling her apart at the molecular level. But pain was just information, and Yuna was very good at processing information. She noticed how the equipment responded to her body, how the machines tracked her biological responses. Each test was another piece of the puzzle. The Eldrin thought they were learning about humans. They had no idea how much Yuna was learning about them. Her fingers, hidden from view, would sometimes trace tiny patterns. Mapping, recording, planning. They wanted a test subject. They were about to get something much more dangerous. A survivor, a fighter, someone who would not just resist, but fight back with everything she had. The next experiment was coming, and Yuna Kim was ready. Everything changed on a day that started like any other. The Eldrin research team prepared for another routine experiment. Yuna lay strapped to the examination table, her eyes moving constantly, watching, waiting. She had learned that patience was her greatest weapon. The lead researcher, a massive crystal being with sharp edges, approached with a device that looked more like a weapon than a scientific instrument. Its translator clicked to life. Final stage of cellular adaptation test, it announced. Yuma knew this was her moment. During the past weeks, she had carefully studied their technology. She understood how their systems connected, how their machines communicated. More importantly, she had discovered a weakness. The device began its scan. Energy started to build up around her body. But something was different this time. Yuma had made sure of that. Hidden beneath her skin, a result of careful manipulation during previous tests, was a biological modification, not something the Eldrin could easily detect. A tiny change that would become her first weapon. The machine hummed. Electricity crackled. But instead of breaking her down, something else happened. A power surge began, quietly at first, then growing stronger. The control panel started to flicker. Lights went crazy. The Eldrin researchers looked confused. Their crystal bodies shifted colors rapidly, a sign of panic. "System malfunction," one of them said. Yuma smiled. This was no malfunction. This was her first strike. She had used her understanding of biochemistry to create a subtle biological interference, something that would disrupt their most sensitive equipment. The Eldrin thought they were studying her. Instead, she was studying them. Alarms began to sound. Not loud human-style alarms. These were strange harmonic sounds that seemed to vibrate through the entire facility. The Eldrin moved quickly, their crystal bodies sliding across the floor. But Yuna was already working on her next move. During the chaos, she noticed something important. A communication panel. Normally, it would be impossible to access. But with the systems disrupted, a small opportunity existed. Her fingers, which had been carefully studying the alien technology, moved quickly. She wasn't just going to disable their equipment. She was going to send a message. The other human test subjects were watching. Most looked broken, defeated, but a few, like her, still had fight left. "We are not your experiment," she transmitted in their own language. The message was short, clear, defiant. The Eldrin researchers tried to regain control. But Yuma had planned this perfectly. Each system they tried to reset would trigger another small disruption. Like a complex chess game, she was 3 moves ahead. This was more than just resistance. This was a declaration. Humans were not going to be passive victims. They were going to fight back. The facility went into lockdown. But lockdown, Yuma knew, was just another word for opportunity. Her first strike had succeeded. And this was only the beginning. The facility went silent after Yuna's first strike. But silence, she knew, was just the calm before something bigger. 2 days passed. The Eldrin researchers moved differently now. More careful, more worried. They whispered in their clicking language, thinking she couldn't understand. But Yuna heard everything. "The human subject is dangerous," one said. "We underestimated her capabilities," another responded. They were right to be afraid. Yuna had a plan, not just to resist, but to escape, and she wasn't going to do it alone. In the cells around her, other human test subjects watched. Most looked broken, empty, but a few still had fire in their eyes. She had been communicating with them. Small signals, tiny movements, Morse code tapped through the walls. Her next move would require perfect timing. The facility had a routine. Every third day, they transferred supplies, medical equipment, food, energy sources. That movement created a small window of opportunity. She had learned how their communication systems worked, how their security moved. Every small detail mattered. During the next supply transfer, something would change. Yuna had been secretly collecting pieces of equipment. A wire here, a small circuit there. Things the Eldrin thought were trash. To her, they were tools of liberation. The junior researcher, the one who had shown a moment of hesitation weeks ago, continued to be her best source of information. Its movements were different, more uncertain. "We don't have to be enemies," Yuna had told it during one examination. The words seemed to echo in the strange, breathing walls of the facility. On the day of the transfer, everything happened quickly. A power surge, but not like the last one. This was more controlled, more precise. Yuna had created a biological-technological hybrid interference that would disrupt their systems just long enough. Alarms started, but these were different. Confused, the Eldrin's crystal bodies flickered with panic. The supply doors opened, and for a moment, just a moment, everything was chaos. Yuna moved, not with panic, but with purpose. She had been preparing, gathering information, understanding their technology better than they understood themselves. Around her, other human test subjects began to wake up, to realize something was changing. "We're getting out," she told them. Her voice was calm, strong. The Eldrin had made a critical mistake. They thought humans were weak, easily controlled. They didn't understand human determination. Yuna had a message for them. Humans were not just test subjects. They were survivors. The facility's systems began to collapse. Doors opened, lights changed. It was like the entire building was losing its mind. And at the center of it all was Yuna, turning their own technology against them. This was more than an escape. This was a revolution. The first human strike against the Eldrin had begun. The facility was breaking apart, but Yuna was just getting started. Technology surrounded her, alien machines that the Eldrin believed were their greatest weapon. Now those machines would become tools of human survival. During the chaos of the escape, Yuna found something incredible. A research chamber filled with advanced equipment. Most humans would have been confused, but she was a scientist, and this was her playground. Her fingers moved quickly over strange control panels, wires that looked like liquid metal, screens that changed colors with her touch. The Eldrin had no idea how adaptable humans could be. "We're going to use their own technology against them," she told the other escaped test subjects. Some looked afraid, others looked hopeful, but all of them were listening. The chamber was a treasure trove of alien technology. Yuna began to understand how their systems worked, not just how to use them, but how to break them, how to rebuild them. A device that looked like a crystal knife became a communication tool. A broken energy panel became a potential weapon. Everything could be changed, repurposed. The other humans watched her work. Some had scientific backgrounds, others were workers, soldiers, engineers. Each brought something different to their growing plan. Eldrin researchers tried to regain control, but every system they activated, Yuna found a way to twist, to change, to make work for humans instead of against them. She discovered something critical. The Eldrin's technology was advanced, but it had one major weakness. It was too perfect, too precise. Humans were messy, unpredictable, and that was their greatest strength. "We're not just escaping," Yuna explained. "We're fighting back." The facility's communication systems began to change. Messages that were once controlled by the Eldrin now carried human voices, warnings, plans, hope. Outside the research chambers, other humans were breaking free. Doors that were once locked now opened. Security systems that trapped them now became their pathway to freedom. Yuna worked faster. Her background in biochemistry gave her an edge. She understood systems, how things connected, how one small change could create a massive impact. The Eldrin had one fatal mistake. They thought they knew everything about humans. But humans were always changing, always adapting. A device meant for scanning became a communication tool. A medical instrument became a potential weapon. Nothing was what it seemed. Around her, the other test subjects began to transform. No longer victims, now survivors, fighters. "We are not your experiment," Yuna said. The words were a promise, a declaration of war. The facility shook. Alien technology twisted and changed. Systems that were once perfect now worked for human survival. This was more than an escape. This was a technological revolution. The Eldrin had wanted to study humans, to understand them. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous. Survivors who would fight back with everything they had. And Yuna Kim was leading the way. The main control room was unlike anything humans had ever seen. Walls that breathed, screens that moved like living things, and at the center of it all, the lead Eldrin researcher waited. Yuna knew this moment was coming. She walked differently now, not like a prisoner, like a warrior. The other humans followed her. Some carried strange alien devices, others moved with a new kind of confidence. The lead researcher, a massive crystal being named Kral, stood motionless. Its body reflected light in impossible ways. "You do not understand what you are doing," Kral said through the translator. Yuna smiled. "We understand more than you think." The room filled with tension. Humans and Eldrin faced each other. Years of research, years of experiments. Everything was about to change. Kral had studied humans for decades. Hundreds of test subjects had died in their experiments. They thought they knew everything about human biology, about human limits. They were wrong. "Humans are not your test subjects," Yuna said. Her voice was calm, strong. "We are survivors." The alien technology around them began to react. Screens flickered. Machines hummed. It was like the entire facility was listening. Kral moved forward. Its crystal body shifted into a weapon-like shape. "You will be contained," it said. But Yuna had prepared for this moment. The devices the humans carried were no longer just alien technology. They were transformed, repurposed, turned into tools of resistance. A medical scanner became a communication device. An energy weapon became a shield generator. Everything had changed. "We have learned your systems," Yuna explained. "Every test, every experiment. You taught us more than you realize." The confrontation was more than just a fight. It was a battle of understanding, of adaptation. Kral tried to activate the facility's main defense systems, but each command was met with human interference. Yuna had studied their technology too well. "Impossible," Kral said. But nothing was impossible for humans. The other test subjects moved with a new purpose. No longer afraid, no longer victims. They were fighters now. Each one had a story, a reason to resist. Screens around the room showed the entire facility. Humans were taking control. Systems were changing. The Eldrin were losing their grip. Yuna stood at the center of it all. "We are not your experiment," she repeated. The words were a promise, a declaration of war. Kral's crystal body began to crack, not just physically, but in understanding. The Eldrin had made a critical mistake. They thought humans were simple, predictable. Humans were anything but simple. The confrontation was about more than escape. It was about proving their worth, their strength, their ability to survive. "This facility is ours now," Yuna said. And for the first time, the Eldrin believed her. The battle for human survival had begun. The facility was no longer a prison. It was a battlefield. Una stood at the control center, her hands moving quickly over alien technology that now obeyed human commands. Around her, the other test subjects worked with a purpose they had never known before. Screens showed the entire Eldrin research complex. Humans were taking control, room by room, system by system. They broadcast a message, not just to the facility, but to anyone who might be listening. "We are not your experiment," Una said. The words echoed through alien communication networks. The Eldrin tried to fight back, but their systems were failing, turned against them by the very humans they had underestimated. Krell, the lead researcher, watched in disbelief. Its crystal body flickered with what might have been fear. Humans had done something impossible. They had beaten a technological species at their own game. Una found the main communication hub, a massive room filled with screens that moved like living things. Here, she would send a message that would change everything. "To all Eldrin territories," she began. Her voice was calm, strong. "Your experiments end now." The other humans worked around her. Some repaired alien technology. Others prepared for whatever might come next. They were no longer prisoners. They were a team. Each human brought something different. A scientist's knowledge, a worker's practical skills, a soldier's determination. Together, they were unstoppable. The facility's systems began to reveal secrets, files about other human test subjects, experiments that went back years, decades of hidden research. "We're going to expose everything," Una told her team. Screens filled with information, proof of the Eldrin's cruelty, their complete disregard for human life. The world would know what happened here. Krall tried one last attempt to regain control, but it was too late. Alien weapons became useless. Communication systems were blocked. The humans had learned too much, understood too much. The confrontation was about more than escape. It was about proving human worth, human strength. Outside the facility, something was changing. The first signals were being sent, messages that would reach Earth, messages that would warn humanity about the true nature of their first alien contact. Una worked without stopping. Her biochemistry background gave her an edge. She understood systems, how things connected, how one small change could create a massive impact. The other test subjects looked to her, not as a prisoner, but as a leader. "We're going home," she said. But home was not just a place anymore. It was a statement, a promise of survival. The Eldrin had wanted to study humans, to understand them. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous, survivors who would fight back with everything they had. The facility shook. Alien technology twisted and changed. Systems that were once perfect now worked for human survival. This was more than an escape. This was a technological revolution. And Una Kim was leading the way. The message was clear. Humans were not test subjects. They were fighters. The reckoning had begun. The journey home was unlike anything humans had ever experienced. An alien research vessel, now controlled by the survivors, cut through space. Una stood at the main control center, her hands moving carefully over technology that was both familiar and completely strange. Earth waited, and nothing would be the same again. The ship carried more than just survivors. It carried proof. Thousands of files documenting the Eldrin's secret experiments. Evidence of years of hidden research. Proof of their complete disregard for human life. "We're going to change everything," Una told the other survivors. They were no longer just test subjects. They were witnesses, warriors, survivors who had done the impossible. Communication systems came to life. The first messages reached Earth. Not calls for help, but declarations of human strength. Scientists studied the alien technology. Military experts analyzed the data. Governments prepared for a response unlike any first contact scenario they had ever imagined. Una knew the real battle was just beginning. The Eldrin had thought humans were simple, predictable. They were wrong. Humans were adaptive, resilient, capable of turning even the most impossible situation into a victory. News spread quickly. The story of the survivors became more than just a report. It became a legend. One research team, captured by aliens, turning their own technology against them, escaping, fighting back. People on Earth looked at the stars differently now. First contact was not a peaceful meeting. It was a battle for survival. The alien technology they'd brought back changed everything. New medical techniques, advanced energy systems, communication technologies beyond human imagination. But the most important thing they brought back was a message. Humans were not victims. They were survivors. Una became more than just a survivor. She became a symbol. Scientists studied her biological adaptations. Military experts analyzed her strategic thinking. The world wanted to understand how one person could change everything. Press conferences became intense interrogations. How did they survive? How did they fight back? What did they learn? Una told their story. Simple, direct, powerful. "We are not test subjects," she repeated. The words that had become a battle cry. The other survivors stood with her. Each had a story. Each had survived something impossible. Governments prepared. Military leaders planned. Scientists studied the alien technology. But Una knew the real power was not in the technology. It was in human determination, in the ability to adapt, to survive, to fight back. The Eldrin had made a critical mistake. They thought they could control humans, study them, break them. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous: human potential. The research vessel became a symbol, a reminder that humans were more than anyone had ever imagined. "We are not alone in the universe," Una told the world. "And we are not afraid." Space looked different now. No longer a place of mystery and fear, but a challenge, an opportunity. The first real test of human survival had come, and humans had passed with a strength nobody expected. The aftermath was just the beginning.